Can you tell?
All right, Amy, Suzanne, we are live. Take it away.
Thank you, Jefferson, and thank all of you for participating in this. This is Suzanne Brooks. I'm director of the meeting, and Amy Semenya, who's the manager of the exhibit hall, is here with me as well. And we just want to thank you for being such an important part of our program. We really do programs like this today and all of the resources that we have available to you for the companies, because the exhibit hall and your companies are real important to our attendees. It's one of the most important parts of our show, and we hope we prove that to you. As always, and as Jefferson has said, we're available to you for any questions or comments. Again, what we are wanting to do here is provide resources for you. We hope we're doing that effectively. If there's anything else we can do, let us know. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jefferson, and I'm going to embarrass you for a moment, but to tell you the hardworking and how proud we are to have the relationship we have with Jefferson. About an hour ago, he became a first-time grandpa. So he's sharing in that delight with us right now. And thank you, Jefferson. We truly appreciate it, and welcome to your family.
Thank you, Suzanne. That is so sweet of you. And thank you, and Amy and the whole ODA team. I may have said this to you exhibitors before. I personally, over the last 30 years, have exhibited at over 200 shows. And I always felt like the only time I heard from the show organizer was when they wanted a check, or when they sent me that service kit with all those forms I had to fill out and return. And I really feel like Amy, Suzanne, and the whole ODA team is really a breed apart in caring so much about exhibitors, to not just rent you concrete and hope it works out for you, but to provide you with the ongoing, evolving education on how to make sure that every dollar and every hour that your company invests in the ODA annual meeting supports your company's core business objectives and delivers measurable financial value beyond cost. And you've probably seen me around the circuit. I've been in trade shows over 30 years. I actually was a consultant trainer for the company that created the intraoral cameras, which were launched in the dental market all the way back in the early 90s. And so I'm very familiar with the dental industry and exhibiting and what it takes to make it pay off. In fact, with my intraoral camera company, over the run of 7 shows, we generated almost $10 million of sales. And many of those were orders we were writing right on the show floor. So dental shows are a really unique breed. I think they're super exciting. If you look at them through the right lens and you do the right things, what you can get by executing strategically will blow your mind. And that's what I'm here to help you do, right? So let's get started here. We got much to cover in a short period. So, wow. So Friday the 13th last year, of all days, right? The doors shut down on the live exposition industry. The coronavirus invaded America, swept across the country quickly, and just completely locked our industry down. We are reopening rapidly. The Florida Dental Convention went off last week without a hitch. I was at the World of Concrete in Las Vegas the first week of June for the reopening of the first mega show in America. And it was so exciting to be there and to see everybody's faces and how excited attendees and exhibitors were. But last year when that virus emerged, right, we got pushed or pulled into virtual as a way to serve your market. And we did some work with you. We did some training to help you get ready. And then, you know, the vaccine showed up in record time, thanks to Operation Warp Speed. And vaccines now, I just saw the latest number, are now, there's at least 330 million doses have been delivered. Some of those are the first of a two-part, and we are ready to reopen. So how many of you on this webinar, go to your question tab right now, and I want you to type in quickly. How many of you are excited, chomping at the bit, can't wait to get back on a live trade show floor? Go there and give me a big yes, I'm with you on this. Anything you want to say, type it in. Let me know what you're feeling about getting back to live. Because if we've learned anything over the last year and 4 months, it's that nothing is ever going to replace the energy, the excitement, and the value, right, of live face-to-face marketing. I think that's been the big takeaway. Maybe hybrid events will have some play if they're approached properly, but virtual for most of us turned out to be a bridge, right? A bridge to get us through. And we're so excited that many of you came along and went on that journey with me. Ali typed in, thank you, Ali. You're very excited to get back. So are we. Several of you raised your hand in the chat queue indicating, yeah, let's do this. So we're super optimistic about live, given everything that's going on. The confidence rate from both attendees and exhibitors in attending is extremely high. Freeman has been doing research now on a monthly basis in all the major convention cities across America. The chart I'm showing you right now is from April, and that number is even higher now. 86% of attendees are confident in attending in-person events. That's good news. And if you're flying, I don't know if you've flown recently. I have flown 3 times now over the last month. Wow, it's amazing how many people are flying. In fact, the military news, they published a study that it's almost impossible to get COVID-19 on an airplane. The Department of Defense spent about $90 million on a study back in, I believe it was October of last year, because they wanted to assess, is it safe to fly government and military people around? And they found out it's really difficult to get it on an airplane. This one is a very exciting study here, and I'll tell you why I'm sharing this in a moment. So given the health and safety measures, given the vaccination rate, given the decline in the positivity rate, a scientific model put together by a company called Epistemics predicts nearly a 0% transmission rate at an event hosting 20,000 people this summer. That is so good news for us. And check out these numbers. I don't know if you've been monitoring the TSA checkpoint, but on June 27th, that was Sunday, 2.16 million people stepped onto airplanes. That number is almost back. We're about 500,000 away from being back to 2019 numbers. So I'll talk a moment about travel restrictions, but I want to give you this information for you, maybe your team, maybe your managers, your partners, your owners. If there's any lingering fear out there about, is it safe to get out there? Is it safe to attend events? I think all of this data is saying, yeah, it is. We're nearing the end. In fact, I believe the big pandemic, I can't remember what it was called, the Swiss flu, lasted about 1.5 years, and that's about where we are. So we're nearing the end. That's good news. Now I'm going to bring Suzanne back on, and/or Amy, just to tell you a little bit about health and safety as of today. Keep in mind that this is changing. I think it's going to be changing even for the better, but this is what we know as of today. So Suzanne or Amy, tell us a little bit about what we can expect from ODA and what you're expecting from exhibitors.
Absolutely. We're going to be following both state, county, city, and federal regulations, including the CDC recommendations. And right now in Columbus, the convention center and our city's hospitality group tells us we are 100% open. Masks are not required. You are asked to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. When we first started planning this, we were looking at 25% capacity in our classrooms and in the exhibit area, as well as our convention center and hotels. We are now at 100% capacity. I will tell you that we're planning a meeting for about 75%, because we are wanting, and you may see this as we walk through, best term I can use is elbow room. We're wanting to give people some room. We don't know that people will be 100% ready to stand shoulder or sit shoulder to shoulder. But we've planned our meeting to be very accessible in that way. We will have hand sanitizing stations. We will have face shields available. We will have a healthy staff. We're asking the same of you, is that if anyone on your team is not feeling well, we ask that you keep them at home or in their hotel. And we ask that if your team is not vaccinated at this point, we will be asking you to wear masks, and use our hand sanitizing stations, do all that. But we will be following the rules. We won't be asking for more than that. Some people have asked if we're going to be mandating proof of vaccination. We're not there at this point. That is not a recommendation. But we are asking everybody to continue being responsible, as we all have. So we do have the face shields available that will be both for our registrants to take home, and we will be ready to meet the needs and concerns of any of both our attendees and you, the exhibitors. We just got off the phone yesterday with our food and beverage supplier at the convention center. All concession stands, they're saying by July 1, are going to be open. I know that a lot of venues have had very limited concessions and pop-up food and beverage stands for purchase. We expect that by our show, all of those concessions will run in a normal way. If you've been at our meeting before, you'll know the Starbucks is very popular. It has been closed at the convention center until tomorrow, and tomorrow it reopens. So again, as Jefferson said, at this point, we're hoping that we're not going to be seeing anything less than what we have right now. We're just feel comfortable that everything will be open up. We do have more common areas in our exhibit hall this year, so that people will have the opportunity to kind of congregate, again, at safe distances, being comfortable, that elbow room we mentioned. Food and beverage, both of the concession stands are prepackaged. I will tell you that Levy is telling us that buffets are ready to go and that they've been having open buffets. Personally, I'm on the fence on that. But we definitely will have packaged foods if that's your option, but you'll also have other options available to you. Again, whatever makes our attendees and our exhibitors comfortable, we want you to have a choice. There are things that you'll be able to do through our drayage provider and on your own as you design your booth. We are not dividing the booths. The booths will be as they have been in the past, 10 by 10, placed next to each other. If there's extra protection that you want to take, such as plexiglass area between your booths, you are most welcome to do that. Fern, our provider, will be able to answer your questions about that. But again, that's your space. Please be comfortable in it.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. So yeah, you can see that things are changing rapidly. When I was at the World of Concrete 2 weeks ago, my primary goal was to look at, I was going to be boots on the ground to see how the show looked and felt different. I wanted to notice how attendees were engaging or not engaging. I wanted to notice what exhibitors were doing in terms of adapting their booths to the, this new environment. The show was held in Las Vegas. And so, some of the things to keep in mind is with regard to crowds, you don't want to overstaff your booth. So I would say, the staffing rule of thumb is 50 square feet per staffer. So if you're in a 10 by 10 booth, 2 people is probably the max. Now that number falls off as you get larger. I would steer clear of, at least for this bridge year that we're calling it, for crowd gathering type tactics, like a presentation where you get 20, 30, 40 people elbow to elbow. I would probably stay clear of that for this year. In general, try to have a little more open space in your booth. Second, masks, again, as Suzanne said, out of safety for yourself, safety for others. If you're not vaccinated, we are recommending that you wear a mask. As far as the distancing, it went from 6 feet to 3 feet. I think the main thing here that you're going to want to watch for is just notice attendees' behaviors. If someone kind of approaches your booth, they pause in the aisle, they stay a foot or two in the aisle. Don't rush out toward them, stay in your space. I mean, certainly look at them, greet them, engage them, but kind of notice how people are acting and responding kind. When it comes to masks, there are people, I still see people down here jogging out by themselves wearing them. I see people driving around in cars wearing them. And, the whole mask thing, just remember, we don't know what any individual has gone through with regard to this virus. They may have lost a loved one. They may have lost, a friend, a colleague. And so, just keep that in mind. We really don't know people's story. I go to a new gym now called Planet Fitness, where they call it the no judgment zone. That's probably a good idea. Whatever, we just don't know what people have been through. With regard to sanitation, certainly a good idea to have hand sanitizer in your booth. Also, if you're going to have any form of high touch surfaces, you probably want to have some game plan for cleaning those with some frequency. And maybe, if you really want to show that we still have everybody's health and safety top of mind, similar to when you go into a restaurant or a retail store, maybe having a small sign somewhere in your booth that kind of explains what you're doing to keep people safe. And touch-free in general, I think just try to reduce the number of touch points. Rather than handing out printed literature, you may want to go with digital literature that can be quickly emailed. If you're giving away any form of samples or giveaways, you may want to have those packaged, right? And you may also want to stay clear of offering or serving food or beverages in your booth. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have bottled water for your staff, but you probably want to stay clear of, for this year at least, stay clear of that in the booth. And again, these are just suggestions. You got to do what feels right for you. A lot of the exhibitors I talked with at World of Concrete said their goal was to try to design their booth experience with what they thought might be their most fearful customer in mind, but not going over the top. So trying to find that balancing act, but again, we're still months away from the show, and we might not even be talking about the pandemic by the time the show rolls around. I hope not. We've got the end of September to go. Okay, quick poll. I want to ask, how many of your companies are on a travel restriction? You are currently under, at the company or the corporate level, there's a travel restriction in play. Go ahead right now, fastest fingers, pick the radio dial button that applies. I'll give you a moment. I'm looking for 100% because that's going to tell me how much time to spend on my next slide here. Looks like about 67% of you have polled. If you haven't done so yet, fastest fingers, click yes or no. I'm looking for 100% here so I know where to go time-wise here. I'll give you one more second. We're at 75% of you have polled. I'll count you down if you've looked away. 92%. There we go. We got it. I'm going to share the results. I want Amy and Suzanne to see this also. So right now, it looks like, you know, about a third of us, a little over a third, are still on travel restrictions. Okay. So thanks for sharing that too, by the way. Let me talk about that for a moment. A corporate travel restriction exception, right? Asking for an exception if it feels right, if it feels appropriate for you. You know, what I found in general, the bigger the company, the larger the company, the more the corporate travel restrictions are in play, and maybe the less flexibility there is. Not always. But the main thing is it may be flexible, right? You know, for example, I had a client all the way back in August of last year who was holding a live event in Aurora, Colorado. And at that point, the maximum crowd restriction was 50 people. They held a live event at the Gaylord in Aurora, Colorado, and they had 450 people. And the state mandate was 50. And I asked them, how did you do that? How did you pull that off? And they're like, well, we requested a crowd gathering restriction exception. I thought we should be doing that in the trade show industry, right? So the key thing is, if you believe that your company's presence at the ODA annual meeting is important, I don't think it hurts to ask. But when you ask, right, there's a few things you're going to want to address in your request. Number one is just communicate what ODA is doing to keep, you know, exhibitors and attendees safe. Share some of the data that I'm showing you here, and talk about what your plan is to keep your staff and your booth visitors safe. I don't think you have to get real deep in the woods, but I think you just got to give a high level. Second, a business reason, right? For most of you, getting FaceTime with dentists and hygienists and the office managers and the assistants, it's really important. And you probably have been going without that now for well over a year. And so when you make your request, give a couple business reasons why you believe your company needs to be here. And then number three is an economic or a financial reason. So I think if you'll attack these three, and I'm going to give you a little ammunition as we go on we're going to do a cost justification thing in a moment. But Suzanne, could you come back on for a moment? You told me something yesterday that I thought was quite interesting about travel restrictions and refunds. Could you speak to that for just a moment?
Absolutely. Again, we all understand the concerns that companies may have and in planning and going forward. So we believe, and what we're offering is that if you have to cancel within 2 weeks of the meeting, go ahead and make the commitment and try to be here. But if your travel restrictions have not been lifted prior to our meeting, we're saying 2 weeks out to give us that notice, we will 100% refund your deposit and or your complete payment. Now, we will ask you to be cautious. This is what the ODA is doing. If you've ordered any services, I'll go to bat for you, but I can't promise that those would be refunded. But I can absolutely promise you that the 100% of your the deposit or payment that you've made to the ODA would be refunded.
Wow, that's quite generous. I mean, that really shows your commitment right there. You know, a lot of shows are like, no, once you make the deposit, we're just going to hold on. You can roll it over. But that's quite generous. So I think the combination of requesting the travel restriction exception, putting in your health and safety, your business reason, your economic reason, and letting your management team know that if that restriction doesn't be lifted for whatever reason, that you can still commit, and you should, but you'll get 100% of your booth space fee refunded or credited. That's quite generous. So thank you so much for doing that, Suzanne. That says a lot about your organization. I want to ask a second poll here. How has your company or your business been impacted by the pandemic in terms of financially and sales? The poll is live. Is your business up? Have you seen an uptick as a result of this? Are you hanging in there? Are you kind of even keel? Or have you lost sales? Have you lost revenue? Have you lost customers? Fastest fingers, I'll give you just a moment to address this. And then I'm gonna make sure you have a pen and a calculator because I'm gonna walk you through a super cool exercise next. So fastest fingers, pick the radio dial button that applies. I'll give you just a moment. Okay, about 70% of you have polled if you haven't polled yet. 75% of you have polled. I'll give you another moment. I'll count you down. That'll be my cue for you to click on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you haven't polled, last chance. Here we go. 1. Okay, 75% are in. I want to share the results again. So it looks like 22% of you, your business is up. Congratulations. You know, that's quite an accomplishment to keep things up when the market went basically closed down. 56% of you are kind of in that even keel place. Congratulations to you too, right? Hanging in there and being able to at least maintain your current level of revenue. No easy feat during this. And 22% of you, your business is down. So I want to talk for a moment, not only cost justification, maybe some of you whose business is even keel is still in cash protection mode. Certainly those of you that your business is down, you know, may even be a little more extreme about, you know, holding onto the cash, not letting it go, and kind of waiting for this to pass. So I want to give you some things to think about here. Let me close the poll. So if you've lost revenue due to the pandemic, or you're even keel, you haven't experienced growth, the question that you would want to talk about with your CFO, your CEO, your vice president of sales is, what does your business need most right now? What do you need, right? If you've lost revenue, you've lost customers, you need leads, you need sales, right? The second question that I would talk about in the company is in how you open doors, build relationships, and bring in new business. How important is face-to-face contact in acquisition, cross-selling, upselling, and maintaining customer relationships? How important is that to your company? And the third question that I would ask is, how does not exhibiting help you get what you need right now? So it's a paradoxical question. It's a very valid question to answer. Because again, you know, many times companies will, the paradox of tough times is the first budget that gets cut when markets dip or decline, unfortunately, is marketing. And Peter Drucker, one of America's foremost business gurus, said it well. He said, there's only two things in business that drive revenue. It is marketing and innovation. Write that down. There's only two things that drive revenue, marketing and innovation. Everything else is an expense. And Peter Drucker said that. So what I'm going to do is walk you through right now a quick formula to kind of help you justify the investment and also point the path to a solid return on investment. That way you're not really spending a dollar, you're getting dollars back. So grab your pen, grab a calculator, let's do this. Okay, so the trade show budgeting rule of thumb. Make sure you have a calculator pen because I'm going to ask you to share one of these numbers with me in a moment. Okay, the trade show budgeting rule of thumb is take the cost of your floor space, your space rental cost, and multiply it by a minimum of 3. minimum of 3. Ideally up to 5, but a minimum of 3. And I'm going to play at the minimums here. So it's $15.05 for a, there are variable booth space pricing at the ODA meeting. There's a $12.45 for a single, a $15.05, and a $17.05. I'm going to play in the middle here on this. So I'm going to assume that you're in the mid-level location booth, $15.05. Therefore, if you multiply it by 3, your total show investment should be around $4,500. Okay, so there are 19 exhibiting hours in the show. I want you to win the game from your exhibit. Anything that happens in the golden hours before the show opens, or the entertaining hours in the evening after it closes, we're going to call that the icing on the cake. But we're not even going to count that in the formula here. I'm going to try to have you win the game from your biggest investment, which is your booth. Now, question, and do this formula with me again, because I'm going to ask you for a number here in a moment. How many booth staff are you going to have standing in your booth on duty over those 19 hours for the purpose of talking to dental professionals? Right? The staffing rule of thumb is 50 square feet. My example here is showing a single booth. So I'm going to have 2 staff on duty full time over those 19 hours. How many are you going to have? Write it down. Okay, now listen carefully. I want you to pick a target number of interactions per hour per staffer. The range, 3 is conservative, 4 moderate, 5 is slightly aggressive. So that means that for each hour that your booth staff is standing in the booth, they are standing face to face talking with 3, 4, or 5 visitors over the course of an average hour. There will be peaks and valleys in hall traffic. So by using the 3 to 5 formula, it builds in the peaks and valleys. Okay. So in this example, my exhibit interaction capacity is 114 interactions. I would like you to send me right now, everybody on the webinar, send me, go to your question or your chat queue and send me what your total target number of interactions is. I want to see that as we go forward. See, at the end of the day, trade shows are about face. It's about putting your company identity, your products, your staff face to face with dental professionals. You have a limited or a finite amount of capacity for face-to-face interaction. This formula tells you the number, right? For you to win the game, all you have to do is attract and interact, in this example, with 114 people. So what is your number? Let me go into the queue, and I want to see, the only way I'm going to know that you know this, that you're actually applying this formula, is that if you'll send your number. So go ahead right now, type your number into the queue, and I want to see as many of you as possible send your number. By the way, it's confidential for my eyes only, okay? So let's keep peeling the onion here. Hey, and by the way, this formula, the companies I've worked with over my 30-year history combined, we've been able to trace $800 million combined results from trade shows. This formula is at the centerpiece of how we create visible, measurable return on investment. Now, if you have a boss, owner, partner, manager, or yourself who's looking and business is down or business is even keel, and you're going, I don't know, maybe we should set this one out. Maybe this isn't the year to come back. Well, here's the first number I want you to run. Divide your total number of interactions, 114, in this example, into the $4,515 investment, and look at this. The cost for you to put your company identity, your products, and a staffer face-to-face with a dental professional in your booth is $39.60. What is your cost per interaction by this formula? Now, if you want to show your company where you're bringing value, contrast that cost with the average cost of a field sales call. In North America, the average cost to put a body in front of a body out in the field is $598 to $1,114. So what you're showing is that you're cutting the cost of generating face-to-face contact, and you're saving your company money, right? Most people never think of it this way, but the numbers tell the story. Now, next variable. What is the value to your company of either a sales order or a customer? If you sell a one-time product like an intraoral camera where they buy it and they're done, that's one thing. If you sell consumables, products where they're ordering monthly or quarterly or multiple times a year, use the value of a customer. So one-time order, use the sale amount. If it's a value of a customer thing, repeat purchase, use either the 1 year or the lifetime value of a customer. So in this example, $2,000 I'm going to use. So here's the question. I want to make a safe, smart, and prudent investment in my company's future, right? I'm going to invest $4,500, right? How do I get my money back? In this example, if I can generate 2.2 sales or customers over time, right? Over time, I will get a 100% top line cash return on investment. Dollar in, dollar back. I only have to convert less than 2% of the total number of people that I talk to. So the question for you then is, what are the odds, right? If you put your company identity, you put your products, your services, your staff face to face with 114 dental professionals, that over time that you can pull 2.25 customers or sales out of that. I would call those extremely nice odds. I would also argue that if you can't convert 2 out of 114 dental professionals, you've got some challenges that might go way beyond this webinar. But if you do have those challenges, feel free to reach out to me, because I'm really good at helping companies turn this thing around. My email address is jefferson@tradeshowturnaround.com. So here's what I'd like to see. How many customers or sales do you need to capture to get a 100% payback on your investment? I'd like you to send that number in the queue. And by the way, if you don't know these numbers, if you don't know your average sale amount, right, then maybe that would limit you. Then send me your total number of interactions. All right, so questions on the formula, questions on anything that we've talked about right now. Go to your question queue, type them in. I've got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to ratchet it up here. And I'm going to tell you what I've been up to now during the fourth quarter when I had a lot of downtime. I went back over my 30 years of consulting and training work with my clients. I looked at what we did, how we did it, what worked, what didn't. I wanted to organize everything that I've learned over 30 years that has helped me and my clients combined generate over 800 million in combined results. And I wanted to organize it into a process, a replicable, scalable process that doesn't matter whether you sell a product or a service. Doesn't matter if you're in a 10 by 10 or 100 by 100 booth. Remember I said early, the 2 things your exhibit program should do. It should visibly support your company's core business objectives, 1, and 2, it should deliver measurable financial value beyond cost. Here's what I never want to have happen to any one of you on this webinar. I never want the day when your boss, owner, partner, whatever, walks into your office and says, hey, Amy, you just spent $25,000 on a trade show. Can you tell me how it supported our core business objectives? And where did we get value? Can you show, tell, or prove where it got value beyond cost? In fact, I would ask you to score yourself prior to the pandemic on a 1 to 10. A 10 is terrific, a 1 is terrible. On those 2 high-level outcomes. Visibly supports core business objectives, mainly in the areas of marketing, customer relationship management, and sales. Score it on a 1 to 10. How well do you feel your previous approach to exhibiting prior to the pandemic was supporting. And if your boss said, hey, you just spent $25,000, can you show me where and how we're going to get a return on in that investment? On a 1 to 10, how would you answer? Because what I will say to you, that if you are not a 9 or a 10 on both of those questions, one of these 8 factors, one or more of these 8 factors, is what's blocking you from getting a return on investment. Look on the right in the red. Number 1, are you in the right event? I tell you what, if you market to dental professionals in Ohio, you're in the right event. Did you align the reasons why your company is exhibiting with your company goals? Did you design a valuable, interactive, learning-based visitor experience? Did you attract enough of the right people to your booth and your functions? Did you effectively engage visitors? Did you get a meeting of the minds? Did you build rapport? Did you discover a problem to help them solve? Did you discover an opportunity to help them seize? Did you capture? If you weren't there to write orders on the show floor, and even if you were only picking the low-hanging fruit, did you have a good capture process that got more than just what's embedded in the badge? Did your leads have committed next actions, right? Did you follow up, right? Did you follow up with visitors? And finally, did you have a system in play to measure how your performance, the value you delivered for your company, the return on investment, both short-term and long-term, and the lessons that you learned that are going to make you even better at your next show? Here's the promise. If you address these 8 factors, you will win at every show you do from this day forward. Here's the warning. If you neglect any one or any combination of these factors, you will struggle at trade shows. So here's the big question I want you to ask right now to yourself. Look at these 8 factors, and I want you to ask yourself, which of these do you feel has most limited your performance and your ROI? In fact, I'd like to give you another opportunity to go to your question queue here and type the numbers. Like you could go 1, which would be select, 4, which would be attract, 6, which would be capture. Maybe it's 8. Maybe you're actually getting results, but you don't have a measurement system in play. What factors are limiting your results? Like Dr. Phil on TV says, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. This is a blueprint. It's a roadmap. It's battle tested. It's been developed, refined, and executed over 30 years. I can trace over $800 million back to this process. The question is, how good are you at executing this process? Which of these areas do you need to take the rest of this downtime that you've been away from shows, right, and fix and learn about, right? That's what I'm asking you here. Self-diagnosis. Hannah, thank you for sharing. Hannah said, I believe that ours is number 8. Hey, many times companies are getting significant ROI, but they don't have a measurement system in play, right? So therefore they can't show, tell, prove. I just had a big exhibitor client I'm working with have her entire annual marketing budget cut in half, primarily because the impending corporate tax rate increase, right? But also she could not cost justify. Hey, if your job is tied up in trade shows, you better learn this process. We're talking job security, not only job security, but job growth, income growth, right? All of that. So I've given you the 2 high-level outcomes. I've given you the 8 strategic steps. This is not logistics operations. These are the strategic steps, right? And I'm going to ask you to become a lifelong student. In fact, I read a great quote this week that touched me. It said, it's what you learn after you know it all that makes the difference. Most people have had no formal education in exhibiting. They've watched others. It's almost the followers following the followers, right? And if you're not scoring a 9 to 10 on those 2 high-level outcomes, you got work to do. And it's good work to do, because what you can get from trade shows will blow your mind. So let me wind down. I'm running a few minutes over here. I want to make sure I get you off before as fast as possible. I'm going to summarize. I had a moment in September where I actually thought about leaving the industry, because trade shows are my thing. My business got completely locked down, and very tough, right? Very tough time. And I did some writing where I said, hey, if I were to leave the industry today, just walk east till my hat floats, right? What would be the most important lessons that I've learned over these 30 years that I would share with anybody who wanted to improve? Get ready. I'm going to go over these 15. I want you to grab which ones you need to work on. Number one, everybody has reasons why they exhibit. Few have goals. Key phrase, reasons are not enough, right? If I ask you, why are you exhibiting? You say brand awareness, lead generation, new product introduction, differentiating, positioning our company or our products. Fine, those are reasons, but they're not goals, right? They're reasons. Goals should address the big three value areas that trade shows deliver around: marketing, sales, and customer relationship management. You should have a written goal that looks 6 months after the event. In the area of marketing, when the doors close 6 months after ODA, how will we know we succeeded? And have one big goal in all three of these areas and reverse engineer your outcome. When it comes to your money, right? Trade shows, the costs can pile up. Keep strict accounts. Have a budgeting tool. Know where the dollar's going. Compare it to what the industry averages are. Find ways to stretch and save the dollar, right? Trade shows can end up as an expensive appearance, and the cost overruns can blindside you if you don't keep strict accounts. Number 4, clarity is power. You might think that every dental professional walking through that door is your target visitor. Chances are they're not. The major question is, who is your ideal target visitor? Number 5, for those of you with multiple products and services, less is more. I think the worst thing you can do at a show is confuse attendees, throw way too much stuff in your booth. So what solution should you feature? I tell you, the hierarchy: new is news. New is a magnet. If you got something new, lead with it. Shout it from the top of the mountain. Which of your product services are really speaking to top of the mind challenges that dental professionals are facing right now? Feature those solutions and round it out with your bread and butter products or your pillar products. Okay, next. Remember, people aren't walking in that exhibit hall to get sold. They're walking in that hall to learn from you. They're looking, they've got problems in their practice. They want your help on how do we solve this. They're looking to discover opportunities to do things better, faster, cheaper, safer, greener, cleaner. They're not walking in there to get sold. They are walking in there to learn, solve problems, and seize opportunities. Number 7, the number one way attendees want to interact with your exhibit is through some form of a presentation or demonstration. They want to do more in your booth than they can do on your website. How are you showing, telling, immersing attendees in your product or service experience? Number 8, the 2 big questions in customers' minds that you need to be able to ask and answer is: number 1, why at all? Why should I be interested in your product services, right? And why you? I can probably buy what you offer from 5, 10, 20 other companies. What makes you different? What makes you better? What makes you unique? Why are you the best fit for my company? If you don't ask and answer these questions, then you're marketing and selling with a blindfold on. Number 9, 80% of exhibitors do little or no pre-show marketing. You know that number that I had you run a few minutes ago, that 114? I tell you how to win the game before kickoff. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Get in the mind and get on the agenda of 114 of the best possible people. How do you do that? With a highly targeted, well-designed pre-show marketing campaign, right? 80% of exhibitors exhibit by hope. They rent space, they show up, and they hope. Hope is not a strategy. Number 10, don't let your exhibit get lost in the crowd. You might think that everybody that passes your exhibit sees it and processes it. I'm here to tell you they don't, right? We've evaluated 35,000 booths in action. I'm going to venture 7 out of 10 booths attendees don't see. And if they do see it, they don't process it. By processing, the question in their mind is, what do you do? Why should I care? Why should I stop and engage? Does your exhibit visually answer those questions? If it does, you have a standout exhibit. Number 11, the environment's different. The way you interact with someone in a 3 to 7 minute interaction is a whole lot different when you've got 30 to 40 minutes in the practice or the clinic. You got to know how it's different. You have to adapt your behaviors and your skills. Your people make or break it. Trade shows are about face. People come to shows to evaluate the people behind the brands. Best people forward. Number 13, if you're not writing orders at the event, and honestly, even if you are, you're only grabbing low-hanging fruit. I believe the real product is leads. It's what you walk off the show floor with. Number 14, if you don't have a measurement system in play, and that simple formula I gave you is the beginning of a measurement system, you're going to struggle. What gets measured gets done, and it's really difficult to improve what you're not measuring. If you're just running from dental show to dental show to dental show to dental show, doing the same thing and hoping things that get better, I can tell you why you're not getting better, because you don't have a measurement system. Number 15, it's what you learn and change from every event you do that will put your company in the top 10% of exhibitors. And I don't care if you're in a 10 by 10 or 50 by 50 booth. Right? You should walk off of every trade show floor in your career and do a look back. What were the top 3 lessons we learned that are going to help us do better at our next show? And if I were to leave the industry today, these would be my 15 big rocks that I would put in that jar and share with you. So the question for you as we wind this down is, you've learned a lot here today. You've learned the 2 high-level outcomes. You've learned the 8 strategic areas of an effective exhibit. You know how to request a corporate travel restriction exception. You have a formula for setting an interaction and ultimate ROI goal, right? You've got 15 of the lessons I learned. So what are you going to do, right? There's an old saying, knowledge is power. Well, partially true. There's a lot of knowledgeable people that are broke, right? I don't really care what you know. I care what you do. What I'm challenging you is to take these final few months where you have been on the shelf and had this tremendous opportunity to look back and evaluate what can we do better and make the changes and re-enter the ODA annual meeting better than ever before. That's my call to action for you. The question is, are you up for the challenge? What are you going to do? Okay, so remember, part of the ongoing commitment is the ODA Exhibitor Success and ROI Center. It's free. It's on the event website. We have articles that can deeper dive on all these topics, webinar recordings and replays, including today's session. And you have the ability to ask me questions through there at any given time. Suzanne, Amy, I've run several minutes over here, so I got to wind down. Any additional thoughts or closing comments before I take a quick look in the question queue?
First of all, thank you, Jefferson. This is phenomenal. And to the exhibitors, just know that we really do view you as partners, and we want you to view us the same way. We know that making you successful and you having a great show brings you to our floor, and our attendees rate our exhibit hall and the experience on the exhibit floor as one of the #1 reasons they come to our meeting. So thank you for being such a big part of our show. Reach out to Amy or I if you have any questions, and please use the resource that we've provided to you. Jefferson Davis obviously is the top of his game. Please reach out to him. He's offered his name and email for questions. Take advantage of that. We will see you on September 30th. Very excited.
Yeah, we are too. So thank you so much, everyone, for logging in. Look for 3 actionable ideas. Take these next few months, put them to work. And if you will, I can close this webinar today not by wishing you a successful re-entry to the live exhibiting arena. I guarantee it will be successful if you're willing to put in the work. So put in the work. We cannot wait to see you at the ODA annual session this year. Finally, we're back together live. So have a great day, everybody. We will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.